To the men who messed it up with an amazing girlfriend wife, how is your life now? Story 1. Not the man, but my husband and I separated a little over 2 years ago due to his alcoholism. He eventually went to rehab, did a DBT program, and stayed sober and consistently went to individual therapy and smart recovery meetings for over a year. He took accountability for his choices and then started respectfully and slowly courting me again, complimenting me, and bringing me flowers when he picked up, dropped off the kids, cleaning the kitchen when I finally invited him to stay for dinner, etc. The rest was history, and we moved back in together in late October. I certainly can't say every relationship is repairable and every woman is willing to forgive. Sometimes it's just too late, but very often all it takes is to care enough to put in the work to be better. Story 2. My life sucks pretty bad. She's doing well, happily married, and has a child, so I'm happy for her. The best thing I ever did for her was letting her go when I messed things up. I still love her even though I've not had any contact in years. We were together a long time and I wish her to be happy. Story 3. Broke up due to life reasons even though we still deeply loved each other. Fell into depression for a few years after that and never quite recovered. That was 10 years ago as of this year. I was in my early mid-20s when we broke up. I've dated a fair amount since then, but never found that kind of connection again. Story 4. Not a man, but I broke up with a sweet and loving man because I was an idiot. I immediately jumped into another relationship with a guy who was the worst one ever, who treated me like and showed me how a real bad relationship is. Now I'm single and alone. I moved on, but sometimes I still think about him and wonder how he's doing. I really hope he didn't take it to heart, and I hope have an amazing life. Every breakup ever has killed me mentally. It's always a struggle until time eventually helps smooth over the pain. Then they just become fond memories. Even bad relationships. I look back with rose-tinted glasses. For people that can't get over their ex, the next person won't be a one-to-one replacement, but they'll be their own unique person. And soon, you'll realize they bring things to a relationship your ex never did, and vice versa, and you will value that about them and cherish them for it. Story 5. I screwed things up at 18 with a girl I would have been happy to marry. Took me almost a decade to get over her. But in that time, I became the person I wished I could have been for her. Finally started dating again about 2 years ago. Now I'm really ready for my forever. Wouldn't have it any other way. I actually know how to act right now. Story 6. I wonder how many exes are reading these comments, wondering if the person who messed it up big time with them ever regrets it or misses them. I certainly wonder that at times. I'm very happy, and I'm glad that ex ended things, because I'm much better off without him. But I do sometimes wonder if he ever regrets the way he treated me. I don't want him to be miserable, but it would be somewhat nice to hear that he wishes he had been better to me. Story 7. Broke up at 19. She was a great girl and turned out to be a great woman. I was hanging with so-called friends that was terrible. Crossed paths at 32. We hung out and recently engaged, getting married in October. I appreciate her every day. Story 8. Lost a masterpiece and kept the frame. Wake up each day surrounded by reminders of colors I couldn't maintain, always wishing I could paint over the smudges and learn the medium of patience. Life is now one big study in longing. Nothing beats the beauty of what was once vibrant. Story 9. Was too young to know how good I had it, so we broke up so I could move across the world to stretch my legs. 4 lonely years helped me realize the world was kinda overrated without the right person to share it with. I moved back and we reconnected. And now there's 3 of us and I've never been happier. Edit the third person in this scenario is my daughter, because we got married and had a kid. With her people reading and thinking we're poly? Story 10. She was the love of my life and I still remember the day we met 13 years ago. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it work, and I made some mistakes that I couldn't forgive myself for after 5 years together. So, we broke up. My life is different now. I used to think there would be other women like her, but I've realized now there won't be. I threw myself into my career, moved away for a better job, and travel the world now. I've been to over 10 different countries, make good money, own a rental property in our hometown, and life's been good on the surface. However, I'd trade it all for a chance to go back in time, see her again, and have another chance. I ruined the chance at even being on speaking terms after losing my mind when we broke up. I realized what I'd done, but it was too late. And she wanted nothing to do with me. She'll always have a piece of my heart. I think about her on lonely nights, when traveling, alone in my hotel, and I still cry sometimes. Story 11. While I was in college, I met an absolutely fantastic, interesting, intelligent, talented smoke show of a girl through a mutual friend. She was super cool, super into me, and fantastic in bed. We hit it off, and I felt like the king of the world. Over the course of the next 18 months, I slowly the relationship up through my inability to be vulnerable. I intellectually thought I understood how to be a partner, but emotionally, I was incredibly naive and clueless. She eventually told me she loved me, and I was too chicken shit to say it back. Eventually, she came to assume I was cheating on her. I wasn't, I was just a coward. It ended acrimoniously. I realized afterwards that it was completely my fault. I lucked out and met someone else absolutely amazing about a year later. We dated, moved in together, got engaged, got married, and have a truly fantastic marriage, and I am so freaking happy every day. Celebrated 11 years married recently. She's my best friend and I am unbelievably attracted to her. I still do feel really bad that I was such a boyfriend to the other woman. I didn't make the same mistakes twice. Story 12. Things are pretty great. I learned from messing up. It took quite a few more goes to find the right person. Don't protect your ego when you up. Feel things and learn. Story 13. Rock bottom, I'd say. However, it absolutely would have derailed eventually even if everything had worked out perfectly. Our long-term goals divide us in big ways. There's even still a chance they would be willing to try again with me in the future. And that gave me some hope at first, but as time drags on, I'm realizing the truth that it was never meant to really work in the first place. We just want different things at the end of the day. My life is bad not because of that relationship derailing, necessarily. More a long line of poor decisions and being bad with money has led me to a ruin I may not make it back from. They are doing well though, and they have a robust support system I never had. Great person, and I wish the best for them. Story 14. Awful. My life has continued to get worse over the past several years, and it becomes increasingly apparent that it will never again get remotely close to being as good as it was with her. Story 15. It's better. I was in a bad place and tried to end my life. I prepared for the suicide by pushing my wife away and asking for divorce so she would hurt less when I was gone. That's all ridiculous, obviously, and she's both smart and kind enough to see through my bullshit. I did try to end myself but failed, and it hurt her. I hurt her. In a way I can never take back or fix. She loves me, and I love her. We are still together since the relationship was never the issue. I love her so, so much. She's an amazing person, and I'm so proud of her. But now she's jumpy and can call police if I don't answer my phone. She will get so worried and upset if I take naps during the day because she thinks I'm suicidal or depressive again. It's sort of like PTSD, I think. I wish I could repair what I have broken, but I can't. I am so ashamed and I feel so guilty every day. It's difficult to not wallow in the misery, and I do my best to show her the love and warmth she deserves. Story 16. I broke up with my ex a year and a half ago. She was genuinely kind, loving, and warm. Saw a future with her. The most significant flaw was she had a mother who was a narcissist, and she couldn't break free from her. I often wonder if she'd been more capable of dealing with her mother if had been a better supporter of her. But I was deeply concerned she would be reliant on me to deal with her, rather than have the strength on her own. She moved away immediately after I broke it off and blocked me when I tried to patch things up, which I think for her sake, am glad she did. She now loves hours away from her mother, and I hope it has given her the chance to escape her shadow. I think of her regularly, with sorrow. Story 17. Awesome. I had 3 serious relationships. First one in high school. She was beautiful and amazing. I was young and dumb. So naturally, thinking I could do better. 4 years, down the drain. Later in life, I met another amazing woman. I had grown older but not smarter. So once again, big time. 5 years down the drain. After that, you won't believe it, met the most amazing woman to ever walk this earth. And this time I slapped a ring on her, became a father, and we are up and running since almost 20 years. Story 18. Am still dealing with guilt and regret, nearly half a year later. Most of that is from not breaking it off sooner, before some deep resentment took hold. If we had, we might have been able to salvage a friendship. Story 19. I feel uniquely qualified to answer this LOL. Not a man though. The TLDR for anyone going through profound romantic loss is probably this one: don't pine, and try not to wait around for closure. Sometimes in life, you have to create closure yourself. Don't resort to hating them, but there also isn't some grand epiphany waiting for you at the end of loss that makes it okay either. It will hurt for a long time, possibly forever, and in the meanwhile, you need to keep living and growing, and hopefully thriving. 2. Know that nothing is ever truly over, and both of you will probably love again, and possibly better than your idealization of a previous relationship. If one or both of you finds happiness with someone else, be happy for them yourself. You loved them, after all. I don't think love needs to be or should be conditioned on whether they spend their time with you, have with you, or talks to you. Just knowing they're out there hopefully happy should be enough if you love them, even if it hurts that you can't be that person for them or partake in their happiness. A series of horrible and unavoidable life circumstances stressed us both out and stressed our relationship beyond belief, and we coped as best as possible, but in the end, couldn't get the job done. Sometimes the circumstances of love matter as much as attraction and love, And that's how it goes. I spent years dating, but have always hated dating and always had a hard time falling for someone romantically. Is easy enough. And those hormones can sometimes fill a hole why I think so many people have with random people TBH. But looking for someone to have a relationship with, no one has come along so far, about 8 years later. As cliche as it is to say, learn from your mistakes and know that it is better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all. Giving yourself to someone fully, mind, body, soul, is truly a special and rare experience, and maybe or even probably most humans never get to experience it. TBH to OP, maybe even you haven't experienced it and are just feeling raw after a normal but dramatic relationship. Most relationships probably don't need to be this fully consuming, all-in, love everything about them thing. The most successful couples I've seen basically like certain things about their partner and avoid the stuff they hate. That's the same with friendships, though. No other person can really ever be your everything person, and it frankly probably isn't healthy to try to make one person into that. I eventually came to grips with things by seeing my ex get married to someone else, and letting go of the life I had imagined for us. I truly think a good portion of mourning is feeling loss for the future that we imagined for ourselves and others, but it's important to realize that future was never real. And it's also important to realize that now that future never will be real, and to let go of those notions after realizing they were always just an idea, an image, a fantasy. Remember what went right, remember what went wrong. There is no need for exaggerating blame to either party. Relationship failures are never one-sided. Take those lessons and incorporate them into who you are and how you behave with your next partner. Don't hate them, don't hate yourself. Try to be clear-eyed about it, as much as it sometimes hurts. I guess here is a final note, and this is a big one for me. Remember what you loved about them and how they changed you as a person, hopefully for the better. I know that for me, my ex inspired me in so many ways to be a better person, and some of those changes took me years to process fully and embody. In general, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around, and every person we encounter has an impact on who we are and who we are becoming as a person. Let those into your life who you respect and admire and want to be like, and reject and distance yourself from those who aren't. Don't let loss make you into a bitter or small or angry person. Remember the generosity and trust that it takes to love someone, and lean into that and keep that as a vector for growth. It may be years or even never that you fully embody that, but that's the best way to move forward, rather than drifting on reminiscences of a past or visions of a future that never were. Hope this helps at least one person out there. Hard-won and hard-fought lessons, but without alighting the difficulty of loss. These are lessons worth learning and embodying over one's life. We're together now. It only took 9 years and a failed marriage for me to work up the guts to tell her how I really felt about her 6 years with my ex, and 3 years of rebuilding myself emotionally and financially. It didn't take me nearly that long to second-guess myself. Story 20. I messed up, she also messed up too. We both did some unkemmed things to each other. We went our ways, dated other people for a few years, found each other again, apologized, talked through things, and now we are 3 years strong, and I plan to propose soon. Story 21. Not bad TBH. I identified what I was doing wrong and fixed it, and my current girl looks at me like I'm the best man in the world. What really bothers me is not being able to make it up to the one who truly deserved it, the person who stuck with me as much as she could during my worst times, but now only has hatred in her heart for me. Sometimes when I'm with my current girl, I can't help but think X would have enjoyed this so much, and a few times I had teared up. It sucks, but that's life, I guess. Story 22. I'm doing well, but it took a lot of time. Both of us are happily married to other people now. I feel very fortunate to have bounced back and to see her do the same. Edit. She will always have a part of my heart, but sometimes love is wanting someone to be happy with someone else, rather than with you. Story 23. My partner of 3YRs left me in November. No explanation, just wasn't happy anymore. I still think about her every day, but every day it gets a bit easier. If it's meant to be, it will be. Love always prevails. Story 24. I'm not the person you're asking for, but Jimmy, on relationships on YouTube, is a therapist who talks about how he up his previous marriage. Anyone could become a better person watching that channel. Story 25. I broke up with an incredibly sweet and caring woman that loved me. While I don't necessarily want her back, I do still feel like an absolutely piece of, and like I don't deserve another chance with somebody else. She loved me and actually cared, but I thought I wanted more. I thought I could find something better. I wasn't as physically attracted to her as I wanted to be, and I threw it away. I feel like the reason why so many women have such a low opinion of men and why they don't trust them. All in all, I guess I'm doing all right. Things could be worse. Story 26. Mutual split. Miss her. Never felt the love from someone like that before. Circumstances prevented us from staying together. Chose to stay in a toxic household with a toxic ex. It is what it is. Story. 27. It was 30 years ago and I don't act like that anymore. But you think memories will fade over time and that later in your life it will be foggy. Nope. It's always like it happened just yesterday. No sense of distance. It remains with you. Story 28. Honestly, it's really FKN hard. I wish every single day that I didn't break up with her. So many things remind me of her, and there's still a glimmer of hope that we will be together. I just have no idea how to even approach it and tell her I still love her without opening up previous emotional wounds. I've dated after and it just doesn't feel right. Story 29. I'm at the lowest point of my life. The past few years have been bad enough, but my physical health keeps declining, and all I have right now is sitting around thinking of everything I've done wrong. I was massively depressed for many reasons, and she was there for me so much and I took it all for granted. A long story short, I broke my foot and was stuck in my third-floor walk-up apartment for months, had to drop out of school, and felt like my life was over. She took care of me through it all, even moved in while she was still in school and helped me so much. Without her, I would have almost certainly given up on life entirely. The past 2 years have this massive brain fog because I was just not mentally present in life. It made me a horrible person and partner. I tried so hard to be a good boyfriend, but I just wasn't. I could only manage to be good about 10 of the time. I truly loved her so much but knew I couldn't be a good partner, but was so scared to break things off because I wanted it to end, but knew I'd miss her for the rest of my life. I think I actively sabotaged things to try and push myself over the edge, cut all ties in the world. I truly was going through absolute, and I feel was justified to be so angry at the world. But that doesn't justify how I acted and how I brought her down too. She was the first person I've loved, and the first person who's ever loved me. It was also the first serious relationship I've ever been in, and there were a lot of relationship practices that I just never learned to be good at. I'm not used to being treated with love, and it's made me a colder person than I want to be. I was very selfish. I would just keep saying, I'm sorry, but never grow from it enough, so apologizing wasn't needed. It's been a long year. I miss her voice and her accent. I still wake up crying from dreams where I just talked to her. Had I done things differently, I probably could have salvaged a friendship where we still check in every so often. But right now it's almost impossible to move on. Can't go out and meet other people, and even if I could, I'm too ashamed of myself to foster a relationship and just worry about hurting more people. Story 30. Not great, though, for both related and unrelated things, such as my health failing me. I lost 2 years of pre-romance friendship and long-distance communication, 5 years relationship and living together, and nearly all of my university memories. And another 7 years after that unable to move on, plus a ton of firsts memories. In person, I've never once seen someone even remotely similar to her in either looks, gait, fashion, or personality. My mind recalls all too well how she moved and smelled, the exact inflections of her laugh, or how her drool pooled on the pillow. In honest, I still dream about her every night, almost like a tortuous penance I can never be free of. Only recently have I started to feel better after meeting another very unique, albeit different girl, and I've approached things in a dissimilar, less reserved way. I made a lot of small, compounding mistakes, but it was more about what I didn't do and say that was the bad coming from my end. She had plenty of her own issues that fed into mine, but instead of taking the lead and ameliorating things between us, I let them fester into a comfortable relationship, which will ruin just about any partnership. Ideas and advice stemming from the modern ideals of dating and relations fed into both of us, and it was the worst thing I could have ever let happen. Younger men, if you have someone truly great, someone your pair bonded with and who is good for you in your future, then cast aside all care for anyone else's opinions and perceptions. Treat them well and don't shy from your honest feelings. Life is a series of regrets, and you don't want this one. Story 31. My wife and I got married pretty young, and I definitely still had some growing up to do that she was forced to bear the brunt of. And I mean like serious growing up. I did some horrible things and we had some horrible fights which I still deeply regret to this day. But she's still here, and we're still married. I am incredibly grateful for the fact that she stuck by my side and worked with me while I grew up, and figured out how to be a man and a husband. I am by no means perfect. There are still things I'm working on, but the difference is night and day. I still take a lot of the patience and compassion that she showed for granted, but it humbles me to my very core that she saw something in me, and chose to stay and push through the pain. I am definitely one of the lucky ones, and I hope that one day I can somehow repay her for all of this. She is quite literally the joy of my life, and I became the person I am today because of her support. Story 32. Significantly improved my life all thanks to the wisdom she passed on to me throughout our relationship and applied it afterwards. I honestly think of her often, and I'm happy to know that she's doing well in life too. Story 33. Relationships are never so one-sided. She wasn't perfect either, and I was amazing at times. Relationships end because round pegs don't fit in square holes. So there are two options. Grind each other down until it does fit, or give up. Most give up, and that takes two. Story 34. I'm glad she is happy. Her life is great. My life is great. I was into her and regretted my actions. But seeing her happy helps alleviate the pain of my behavior. Story 35. This thread is a good example of the existential deprivation men carry inside them. The woman you loved and messed it up with is a direct reflection of the very qualities you seek to have within yourself. You just tried obtaining those qualities via someone else. If after years and years your gut still wrenches when you look back to her, then you are not meeting your own needs, wants, and desires, and/or not moving through the pain of that time. If you do not attend to that emptiness and wounding, you will go through this entire life with that mangled pain never healed. 2 words. That. I'm getting married to the women of my dreams this year. I do still think about my ex, but only in a I wish I hadn't screwed them so badly kind of way. I used the pain to try and grow as a human and be better. Story 36. Not a girlfriend, but an ex-boyfriend. He was one of the best people I've ever known, and the love of my life. I will never love another person the way I loved him. It sounds dramatic, but it's true. Unfortunately, I was in a dark place in my life and didn't know how to cope with the things I was going through, and I ended up doing terrible things that led to us breaking up. I betrayed him, and I take full responsibility 100%. It was my fault, absolutely and without a doubt, and I'll never forgive myself. I've tried to be in relationships since then. I'm in one now, but never again have I felt the deep love and bliss that I felt then, and I doubt that I ever will. It all feels so different now, so at the surface. I love the person I'm with now, but it's different. It feels almost like a part of me is just gone. I can't feel anything with the same depth that I did before. If you're out there, my little prince, I'm so sorry. I love you, always. Story 37. I felt lost for years, but even though it was a very tough lesson to learn, it prepared me for my current relationship. I really thought my ex was the best I could ever get, because I could not even fathom to imagine someone like my current partner. She truly has exceeded my wildest dreams. Nowadays, I thank my past relationship and mistakes because they made me ready for the love of my life. Give yourself time to mourn. It took me 5 years, but most importantly, learn and grow. Your future self will thank you. Story 38. We were together for 7 years, married for 1, then separated and divorced. Sometime between separating and divorcing, she met someone through work and had a baby within a few years, possibly even sooner. The thing that stung, she named her kid what we were discussing for potential kid names if when we wanted to start a family. By the end of our relationship, we had reached a point of complacency, and I felt like I was just coasting through it. There were issues stemming from my naivety about relationships, mainly not being attentive enough and not focusing much on minor details. By the end, I realized I wasn't being a good partner. However, some of my friends, both male and female, told me I was being too hard on myself and shouldered more of the blame than I deserved. They reminded me that we both made mistakes. As someone who tends to be very self-critical, it was hard for me to let go of that, but I tried to push those thoughts aside to just get through each day. Since then, I've struggled with major depression, but I've also made improvements in my personal growth. I threw myself back into dating, learning more about myself and relationships than I ever did in the 7 years of my relationship. Though many of my experiences were driven by at the start, it was nice to feel wanted again. I went to school and to do my bachelor's degree within 6 months of separating, focusing on me and my goals, as I had spent so much of the relationship thinking about us rather than me. It was what I needed for my personal growth. I met someone not long after finishing my bachelor's who had gone through a similar experience, and we've been dating for 3 years now. In July 2023, I moved to Japan to teach English for a year, July 2023, July 2024, and then returned home. I began a teaching master's program in January 2024, which will be completed later this year. Lots of changes professionally and personally. I see too many people that get knocked on there and then just never get up again. All I can say is, work on yourself, put yourself in a position that makes you feel good and sets you up for success, and everything else will follow with it. I still have more goals. Saving up for a house post-graduation that will take a little time, but will put me in a position to keep the momentum going and work towards something else after I accomplish the next goal, and the goal after that potentially work on, and then publishing some of my book ideas. Just gotta keep on moving and improving. Story 39. I've had 2 girlfriends who were both amazing in their own ways and who I didn't fully appreciate at the time. I don't know if I'd say my life is worse off without them. We were incompatible in different ways, but they broke up with me for problems that I needed to fix, either because of my lack of self-esteem, social awkwardness, and 17-year-old behavior, or because I was incredibly depressed and suffered from a chronic cannabis addiction. It wasn't easy, but after a suicide attempt at 25 not long after my last ex broke up with me, she doesn't know, and it wasn't her fault, and then telling myself I wouldn't kill myself until I'm 30. I'm happy to say that now I'm in my 30s, life is pretty good. My ex's leaving me was unbelievably painful at the time, but they left me for good reasons, and in retrospect, I'm glad they did, because it gave me the opportunity to self-reflect and become a better person. I'm now able to look back on these relationships with some regret about not being a better partner, but also with the wherewithal to wish them well and move on in life, even if it took a long time to get there. Is my life perfect? No. There's still a lot of things I struggle to change about my life. I'll be 2 years sober come February. I'm on the lowest strength depression medication in over 10 years. Have a stable job, good friends, have moved out of my parents' place, and am more emotionally stable than I've been in. Well, since I was a preteen really, I'm better equipped than I ever have been before to make positive changes in life, and I know I'm in a place where I can bring something to a relationship rather than just looking for someone to love me. I really respect her because she is shown to be smart enough to want nothing to do with a loser like me. Story 40 up, since I have narcissist tendencies which now I have to deal alone. Although I'm happy that I'm not making anyone miserable anymore. A lot of lonely nights what ifs. Story 41. I've had multiple beautiful, gorgeous women who do anything for me. But it was during active addiction I didn't want any help. I've just recently went into rehab. About 6 months ago, I never realized how great these women actually were. I seem to keep relapsing, drowning myself in regret from everyone I've hurt. Bottom line is, if you have someone that'll do anything for you, those kind of people you can never replace. So reciprocate the same energy. Story 42. Haven't had another long-term relationship ever since. There is nobody like her. But besides that, my life isn't bad at all. I have a good job, amazing friends. Only thing is that love isn't in the cards for me, apparently. Story 43. I grew up in a household where my stepdad abused us and turned my mom into an alcoholic. I really didn't know how to be in a healthy relationship because I really didn't see one growing up. My ex was an incredible and wonderful woman, and I ruined it. By the time I started getting help and therapy, it was too late. I met my current fiancé and treated her the way I should have treated ex all along. When she found me, I was broken and going into debt. Now, we are slowly planning our wedding and I'm trying to be the first to go to college. I got lucky, but it has been a lot of work and I am working on improving myself every day. Story 44. Lost the love of my life at like 22 by being a stupid young kid and making just about every mistake a male does in a relationship, other than stealing money, getting them hooked on drugs, getting them pregnant. Unfortunately, my lesson was learned late, and am now 31 without a relationship lasting more than 2 months. Losing that person has ruined whatever I was beforehand, and although I don't keep up with that person and haven't checked up on them since, I know they are more than likely in a better place than I am currently. Every day, my brain goes back to it consciously or subconsciously, even though I don't let it drag me down as much anymore. Story 45. I messed things up with a girlfriend years ago. We eventually made up and got married. But she hasn't been the same since, and I miss the girl she was before I made her bitter and jaded. That was 15 years ago. Story 46. She took me back. So 9 years later, it's hard sometimes, but I wouldn't want anyone else to go through it with. I screwed up big, broke up with her, went back to my ex, the whole 9 yards. Now I'm looking at her and our kids before bedtime. Story 47. We broke up for about a year, and then we got back together at a wedding of our main couple friends in which she was a bridesmaid, and I was the best man. Earlier in the breakup, I had tried to get her back by text or AIM or something equally pathetic, but by this point I thought it was a waste of time trying to get back together. And since that wedding, it's been like 15 years and we have bought a house and gotten married and made each other crazy, and it's been really great. Story 48. I was good friends with her for years. We kind of grew up together. She was beginning a promising career as a singer and musician and was extraordinarily talented. I found her very attractive and I knew that she was in love with me, or at least cared very deeply for me. For some reason, I avoided getting into a relationship with her. Perhaps I felt I wouldn't measure up to the person she thought I was, or that there was an imbalance in how deeply we felt for one another. It was probably a little of both. And then, she was suddenly gone, killed in a car accident. For years, I thought about what might have been. Maybe, if she had been with me, she might be alive today. I would often have dreams about her only to wake up with my stomach in knots because of how real and visceral the dreams felt. The aching feelings of emptiness and loss stayed with me for a long time. She died over 20 years ago. Today, I'm happily married with 2 amazing kids and 2 foster kids. I have a good job and a loving and happy family that I love dearly. I love how my life has turned out. But sometimes late at night, like tonight, I think about her and what might have been with pangs of regret. Story 49. My life has been fine. It could be better, but I'm doing okay. She was never my girlfriend, but wanted to. She is extremely smart, beautiful, and in amazing shape. I was afraid to date her and vocally tell her how I felt about her. She knew I cared for her and also beyond liked her. We would hang out, go out on dates, cuddle, and kiss. I truly enjoyed my time with her but was scared. I was scared because I felt like I wasn't good enough for her. I didn't want to hold her back. She accepted a job the next state over, and she is doing absolutely amazing. She loves her job, and she seems happy. The days I'm happy is whenever I see her post one of her achievements on IG, and I see that bright smile. Fellas, when you have an amazing girl that you care about, please let her know. Don't be afraid, take a deep breath, swallow your pride, and speak to her.